Hello guys, I wanted to show you some build that I'm playing for the past few days, and I think that may be a build of the league just because of how much scaling potential it has, because we are using Hand Wisdom in action and we are stacking intelligence. Okay, so let's get to the video. I will explain every item and the synergy between them. Okay, so maybe first why Tangle Tongue is very good with Hand Wisdom and action gloves, and with Sunder my enemies Ascendancy point on Invoker. So first, Tangle Tongue has really low base damage but very high base critical hit chance, and the high critical hit chance works really well with Sunder my enemies because we ignore enemy elemental resistances on critical hits. So that's first why Tangle Tongue is very good on Invoker. Second, it has low base damage, and to cover that we are using Hidden Wisdom in action, and we are stacking intelligence to get flat lightning damage. So we have solved critical hit chance and flat damage. Also we are getting flat damage from our rings. It's very important, but I will talk more about the gear later. Another interaction that we are using are the Crown of Ice Helmet and Threatened Light Focus. So what does it give us? Crown of Ice Helmet gives us increases and reductions to spell damage, also applies to attacks. And the Focus, which we are using, gives us 12% increased spell damage per 10 spirit. And since we are Invoker, we are also taking the Ascendancy node Let Me Through Grace, which gives us additional spirit per energy shield and evasion rating on our body armor. So you want to get a chest with really high energy shield and evasion rating, and then our focus will give us a lot of increased attack damage. In my case, where I have 243 spirit, it's almost 300 increased attack damage. So those numbers are really high. It's really similar to the previous league when we were using the Pillar of the Cage God and we were increasing our attack damage with strength. It is pretty similar. It's not as good as it was in the previous league, but it's still really strong. So from the two uniques you get about 300% increased spell damage, and you can get this number up to 16% increased spell damage per 10 spirit if you get the right corruption, and you can get even better chest. So yeah, this build has crazy potential of scaling. You can just go higher and higher with numbers. Same with the Tangle Tongue and the Hand Wisdom in action. You can just get the higher intelligence, better corruption on gloves. So yeah, this build might be build of the league just because of this, as I told before. It's crazy how high you can go with this build if you just play enough. So going to the items, first we're gonna talk about the Tangle Tongue. So stats that we are looking on it, so we want to get a high critical strike chance on it. Then if you get a high critical strike chance, you want to look for a two socket runes or a corruption with a critical damage bonus on it. And for the critical hit chance, I would say that the above 19% is okay. Then start to look for a additional rune socket or just for the corruption like mine, for the critical damage bonus. And if you are still leveling and you don't have like above 70% critical strike chance, don't go with critical damage bonus runes, just go with the flat lightning damage. It will be much better. Then going to the gloves, so it is Hoa gloves. And actually you just want to get an additional rune socket to get more intelligence or resistances if you are missing some of them. And if you have more currency, you can go for the corruption that gives you 1 to 12 lightning damage instead of 1 to 10. Belt Ingenuity, I think it's best in slot for us because it boosts our rings. But if you don't have currency for Ingenuity, you can go with a rare belt with strength, so you will not have any problems with it. And maybe some life resistances, and yeah, that should be okay. Going to the rings, stats that you want on the rings first is flat damage to attacks, but the best is to physical or lightning, because 80% of physical damage is converted to lightning on lightning spear, and lightning damage is just good, because in the future on our amulet we will be taking a anoint that gives us 2% increased lightning damage per 10 intelligence. That's why we want to get physical or lightning damage, but fire and cold is good also. And then after you got the flat damage on rings, you want to get rarity, because you really want to get rarity to about 100% to get better loot. And then some resistances, if you can get intelligence is really good just because of the Hoa. On mine, I didn't get the intelligence because those rings are pretty expensive. But first, go for the flat damage to attacks and then rarity. For boots, movement speed, 35% increased movement speed would be best, but I've got 30 on mine. I will be changing them. Also, we want to get evasion, energy shield base. I've got armor, energy shield right now, but I will change them, so it doesn't really matter. Some resistances if you are missing, and intelligence. And actually, that's all. Chest. The only thing that you want on the chest is very high evasion rating and energy shield for our spirit to be really high, thanks to our Ascendancy point. Then you can get some intelligence on resistances if you can get it, but that might be pretty expensive to buy chests with high evasion rating, energy shield and some resistances. But if you can afford it, then go for it. It will free some mods on your rings, and maybe you can get some better rings for less costs without the resistances. Helmet, Crown of Ice. So here you just want to get one with maybe plus 14 or 15 to all attributes, and then corrupt it. I think the second rune slot would be the best, just because you can either go with resistances or intelligence. Offhand, we are using Threatened Light, as I said before, and I got mine with 2 rune sockets right now, but later I would like to change it for the maybe 14 plus would be great, increased spell damage. And for the amulet, in the endgame version, you really want to go with Astramantis, but for now I don't have currency, and with Astramantis I would have problems with resistances, because amulet is how I solved my resistances, because as you can see, it gives me 26 to all elemental resistances and 35 to cold. Also, I've got rarity and some intelligence on it, and the increased maximum energy shield is also really good because it gives me quite a lot energy shield. And for the anoint, right now I'm using barbaric strength just to get a little bit more critical damage bonus and some strength, but in the end game you really want to go for the pure power, and it gives us 2% increased lightning damage per 10 intelligence. But since my intelligence is pretty low right now, I got 260, so I'm not using it yet, but if I get more intelligence or when I get an assignment, I think that would be a good point to swap to it, because then my intelligence would be like over, I think, about 500, because right now almost my whole tree is like taking dex notes, because we need also almost 200 dexterity for our skills. So yeah, with Astramantis I would go to like 500 intelligence, swap the anoints, and probably double my damage or even more. But Astramantis is like 50 divines right now, I think. Okay, and going to the skills. So our main skill to clear maps is Lightning Spear. It is just too OP, do not play it. And if you are bored of it, you can just use some other skill. Maybe you want to use Twisters, you can try it. Actually, any skill should work, just because how this build works. So no matter what skill you take, most of our damage is coming for gloves and rings, so any skill should work with this. I'm just using Lightning Spear because I didn't play with it yet. It's my first build with Lightning Spear, and it feels really good. And it is supported with Volt, Lightning Infusion, Fork, Long Shot and Perpetual Charge. Then for bosses we are using Storm Lance with Martial Tempo, Deliberation, Primal Arment and Overextend. And actually I'm swapping Perpetual Charge for the Storm Lance. Then Barrage with Premeditation, Mobility and Inhibitor. You don't really need to use it. If you don't want to press another button, just don't use it. I'm just using it sometimes on maps. Usually I'm using it on the Expedition, because Expedition is pretty hard if you have all 8 points allocated for it. But if you don't want to use another button, just don't use Barrage, you don't have to use it. Then Orb of Storms, and it is really important for bosses, because Orb of Storms will make that the Storm Lance is detonated, and it deals way more damage with Orb of Storms. And it is supported with Overabundance, because if you don't have this support, you can just put down 1 Orb of Storms, but if you have it, you can put 2 Orb of Storms. Then Font of Rage, just to generate rage and get 30% more damage. Inspiration, to have less cost. Doesn't really matter, because we are using Orb of Storms on level 3, so you don't really have to use the inspiration. And their persistence, so the orbs stays longer. Then Wind Dancer, you can use some supports there. I didn't do it, but if you want, you can just support something like Maim or Blind. Link with Precision and Herbalism. And there's 2 options. You can use Ingenuity For the Sniper's Mark in cast on crit or in blink. If you use Ingenuity in blink, you just can blink faster. If you are using Ingenuity in the cast on critical, you have more damage on bosses because you get frenzy charges more frequently. Herald of Thunder with Innervate, Magnified Effect and Electrocute. And cast on critical with Sniper's Mark, Impetus, Ingenuity and Profusion. Okay, and going to the Ascendancy, first two notes that you want to take are those two for the 20% extra damage. Then we want to go for Sunder My Enemies if you get enough critical hit chance to proc crits pretty often. And last, Let Me Through Grace to get enough spirit. Actually go for Let Me Through Grace when you get the Crown of Ice and Threaded Line, because, and of course the Great Chest with good evasion and energy shield, because then we get a lot of damage. As you can see in my case, it's like I'm right now on 110,000 and I'm going, it's like half of my damage. And then for the tree, you can play this build in a few versions. I will show you how to change the tree. But right now, this is the tree that I'm using just to farm ups. It's like the well-rounded, I would say, like that. You go here, taking these nodes, taking here 4% movement speed, going up there, taking the critical hit chance, some energy shield and increased intelligence, grabbing this section, and those two nodes are pretty strong because that's 40% increased damage if you've dealt a critical hit recently, and we have like 98% critical hit chance, yeah, so we are critting all the time. Also, Eternal Youth Keystone, really important for your survivability, because as you can see, my shield right now is 1000, and if I press my life flask, it starts recharging. And without this keystone, you don't have any way of recharging your energy shield. You just have to wait like, I don't know, 2 seconds or how much is it for your shield to start charging. But it doesn't really work on maps because you can't get hit in those 2 seconds. Yeah, Eternal Youth, very important for your survivability, and to regenerate your life, you either have to get ring like mine with life per enemy killed, or just use cannibalism support instead of herbalism. Then taking this node because it gives a lot of energy shield. It gives over 100 flat energy shield for me. Going up, taking these crit nodes, taking Jewel. Jewels are also really good for this build because you can get spell damage. Also works for us because from this helmet our spell damage applies to attacks. So we want to grab Jewels, something like that with crit chance, crit damage, spell damage, or maybe I've got actually, yeah, all of them with spell damage. And my fourth jewel is critical damage for attacks, crit bonus for attack damage, and increased damage with spears. So I've got triple damage jewels. They give us a lot of damage. As you can see, yeah, one jewel is like 8% damage. So they are very strong. So you want to get really good jewels. Also, you can get a jewel with maximum energy shield, but they are pretty expensive. Like jewel with critical hit chance and critical bonus damage with energy shield is like 6 divines or something like that, and not the best rolls. So if you want to get more energy shield, you have to invest a lot more, or just take jewel with like critical hit chance and energy shield with spell damage. It might be cheaper, but critical hit chance and bonus damage is really important on this build. So I would say just go with the jewel, something like mine. If you want to play more tanky version, you just have to remove some nodes. I would suggest you to remove these two, this and maybe this, and grabbing this section. It gives 3% movement speed, so it's not that bad. Or maybe you can even go there, taking 60% increase maximum energy shield. It's huge. And taking this intelligence for Hoa, it's also pretty good. And with that setup, you are a little bit slower, have a little bit less damage because we are losing a section, some skill speed. Maybe you will have to drop those two, but you will have like 4,000-5,000 energy shield. So you'll be really tanky. And for the maximum damage, those 3 points gives you a lot of damage because it deals 40% increased critical damage bonus against enemies within 2 meters and 25% increased damage. And for the 3 points, that's huge damage. And on bosses, you always want to be on the enemy, on the bosses, because Orb of Storms and Stormlands. So you always want to be on the bosses. Also, if you are on the boss, you are generating rage, so that's 30% more damage. So you can, maybe on bosses, you can remove those two, because evasion doesn't really matter on bosses, and 3% movement speed is not that high. and then just remove 1 point from somewhere, maybe just remove this point because it also just movement speed, and taking these 3 nodes. If you have problems with bosses, you can do that, but if you've got a little bit better gear, you don't really have to swap that. But if you want to make sure that you kill boss faster, you can just go for these 3 points. Hope you enjoyed this guide. And it is not really my build, it's not entirely my build. I was just bored and I was looking at poe.ninja and I found out that invokers are playing something like that, so I just bought the items, started playing it. So I didn't found out it. I don't know who found it first, but it's pretty good build and I didn't see any videos on the YouTube, so I thought that it's a great idea to show it to the more people. Maybe someone would like to play it because it's pretty similar to the strength, to the attribute stacker that we had in the 0.1 version. And yeah, it's pretty fun and it has really high ceiling. So if you like scaling your build really high, I think that's the perfect one for you. And also, if you have any more questions, I would like to invite you to my Discord channel when I or someone else can answer you.